venga la intervención, estamos desesperados, no hay comida, no hay medicina, estamos cansados. A Maduro yo le digo que ya basta.
¡Venezuela! ¡Libertad! ¡Ayuda humanitaria! ¡Ayuda humanitaria!
The anger is focused on humanitarian aid that the U.S. has sent and that Venezuela's president, Nicolas Maduro, refuses to accept.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. Tensions continue to rise in Venezuela today over whether humanitarian aid will be allowed into the country.
Todos estos meses, todo el tiempo de marcha por mi familia, por la comida, por el pueblo.
Siempre voy a estar en las calles luchando por la libertad de mis hijos. Y bueno.
La violencia del gobierno y la violencia del AMPA. Todo eso son razones para tú salir a protestar, a manifestar, a defender tus derechos y aspirar a una mejor Venezuela.
Venezuela was once South America's richest country. Now it's in turmoil.
Both of these men claim to be Venezuela's president. But who are they, and how can two people claim the same office? There's a power struggle happening right now in Venezuela. Nicolas Maduro, who's been president for the past 5 years, and Juan Guaido, the opposition leader of the National Assembly, both say they have the constitutional right to the office. The disagreement has caused international backlash, and dozens of countries have picked sides. But how did it reach this point?
Maduro and his regime has led the nation into a state of crisis, and now a massive shortage of food and aid in the country is leaving thousands of Venezuelans literally fighting for their lives. He has exerted more control as the Venezuelan economy has continued to collapse.
Protests on the streets of Venezuela turning deadly after President Nicolas Maduro declares victory.
The violence on Sunday, very real. The bomb went off near some motorcycle police, wounding several.
Election day clashes between protesters and police claiming at least 10 more lives.
At least one candidate has been murdered, shot to death.
The U.S. imposed financial sanctions on Maduro and members of his government. Maduro has unprecedented power over a country that continues to spiral out of control.
Esto está cada día peor, mi querido. Si este hombre no se va, aquí Venezuela, bueno, ya. Una guerra aquí. Aquí lo que hay es guerra, una guerra.
Juan Guaido declared himself acting president of Venezuela in January 2019. Maduro had just been sworn into his second 6-year term earlier in January, but opposition boycotts and allegations of voter fraud tainted his election. The National Assembly, controlled by the opposition, did not recognize the results. U.S. President Donald Trump recognized Guaido as Venezuela's legitimate president and praised his plan to hold new elections. Maduro immediately accused the United States of trying to orchestrate a coup from Washington, D.C., and he gave the U.S. 72 hours to remove its diplomats. In January, thousands of Venezuelans marched in the streets. They called out Maduro's corruption and demanded he step down. The 35-year-old engineer is the newly named head of Venezuela's National Assembly. In 2011, he joined the National Assembly. Guaido was reportedly shot with non-lethal rounds by government forces in 2017 during anti-government protests in Vargas, his home state. He was named president of the National Assembly on January 5, 2019. Earlier this year, Guaido was momentarily detained by the government, but he was soon released.
Esta Asamblea Nacional, como único poder legítimo electo por los venezolanos, asuma la representación del pueblo.
His claims stem back to the widely criticized 2018 presidential election. Key opposition figures were barred and others boycotted the elections, calling them rigged. Guaido invoked Article 233 of the country's constitution, which says that at the beginning of a new term, there is no head of state. The head of the National Assembly, Guaido, would become the president until free and fair elections take place. Guaido claims the country had no legitimately elected president at the beginning of the new presidential term because of the disputed election, so he assumed office. On January 23rd, he swore himself in as the interim president of Venezuela in front of thousands of supporters.
Juro asumir formalmente
directamente a las competencias del Ejecutivo Nacional, como el presidente encargado de Venezuela.
This small bowl of rice and beans is the only meal these children are going to get each day. 3 million Venezuelans have fled this country. Food is rationed and in short supply.
Here, for one to eat, it's become difficult. Sometimes I even can't get food for one.
The United States backs Guaido with more aid shipments, this time arriving on military planes. But the donated help is still stuck. It sits in a tightly guarded warehouse. Beans, oil, pasta, diapers, all packaged and heavily branded by a country that has sanctioned Maduro's government.
So in talking with people crossing the border, it's amazing how many people travel hours to cross the border just for toilet paper.
National Guard tear gas protesters from both Venezuela and Colombia who tried to reach bridges between the two countries. On the Colombian side of the bridges, opposition protesters tried to escort trucks with emergency food and medical aid into Venezuela using what leaders call a humanitarian avalanche. On the Venezuelan side of the border, the Venezuelan National Guard injured more than 24 people. Venezuela's President Nicolas Maduro says the aid is a precursor to an American invasion and continues to pledge to keep the assistance out.
So basically, the opposition's been trying to get food past Nicolas Maduro's blockade at the borders, and they haven't been able to. They've amassed hundreds of people on some of the bridges. It looks like there's been thousands. But Maduro has been pretty strict about not letting the full number of aid shipments get in. On one border, there was some aid that got in, but it got burned by the soldiers on the other side. And here, this bridge I'm on, they've been trying to make the aid get through, but it hasn't been able to get past basically a huge wave of tear gas. There's been rock throwings. The food behind me is not really getting anywhere. It doesn't look like it's getting anywhere today.
In terms of decline from their peak, I don't think I've seen anything quite like this.
Ya basta, ya estamos cansados de que nos manipule, de que los niños pasen hambre, de que los niños tengan que buscar la comida en los containers de basura porque no tienen que comer.
We need to get people eating. Fundamentally, we need to get people eating. That comes actually before the politics. Of course it does. The state's a disaster. It's, this is not a functioning place at all.
Cops just shoot people in the street because they don't trust the penal system. It's not clear if Maduro falls, what would replace him.
Sacar 10 millones de votos